Okay, folks, get ready for a long review. There's a lot to talk about, and I even had to curtail what I had to say because I got a big pile of stuff that we're going to be reviewing here. Special guest reviewer, my wife here.
Hello.
She begrudgingly watched this movie with me. 1986. This is the 10th anniversary director's cut, which is important. So the director's cut is the European release, which is 116 minutes long. And the US release was 111 minutes long. So this is the full version. Highlander. There can only be one. Greatest catchphrase of the 80s.
That's what he says over and over.
This movie, again, it has a 116-minute runtime. This was written by a UCLA undergrad student at the time by the name of Gregory Whidden. Excuse me, that was awful. He wrote this assignment for his school. He wrote this for a school assignment. His teacher read it and said, get an agent, and he sold the script for $200,000.
Not bad.
He was pretty much influenced by this movie by Ridley Scott from 1978, The Duelist, which I happen to own and I didn't even know it. So,
of course,
this is a movie about dueling. This is also a movie about battles.
So many battles.
Much to the chagrin of my lovely
The whole
wife here.
freaking time. Nothing but battles.
So
if you love battling, you'll love it.
This movie was a box office failure. It cost $12.8 million to make, and it cost $19 million to make, and grossed only $12.8 million at the box office. It became very popular and very successful when it went to video rental and home movie. Okay. Then it became what they call a cult classic. So the guy that wrote this movie, again, Gregory Whidden, he is also famous for writing the script for Backdraft, which is a Ron Howard movie, and then another famous movie that he wrote starring Christopher Walken, The Prophecy, which I also own, but I've never watched.
That face looks
I hoard movies over here. So
really does.
We'll have to review The Duelists and we'll have to review Prophecy because they've been on the shelf for a couple of years now.
That eye looks
let's get back to Highlander. The script that he wrote, they did not really implement into the film. So
they did
They did the basics of it, but they did a bunch of rewrites. For example, in the movie, the MacLeod character, they can't have any children or offspring. In the book, the MacLeod character outlives his wife's and his offspring. And there wasn't as much like lightning bolt type of transformational stuff. And then the villain, who was an amazing actor, very menacing, his character was not as menacing.
We're doing a review, so are you okay?
Most low-budget ghetto reviews that you've ever seen in your life when you have so many children, you have no privacy at all. We're in the middle of doing a video here. So
we're all playing happily until we try to do something, and then suddenly everybody needs you. You guys know how it goes.
Interesting. The director, his name is Russell Mulcahy. He's an Australian director. In the 80s, he was primarily known for shooting music videos, and he kind of shot this movie a lot like music videos of the 80s. It kind of had that vibe, and Queen did contribute a lot to the soundtrack. So this director, Mulcahy, he's famous for kind of neo-noir vibes, the way he catches light. I kind of saw like a William Friedkin influence on the way he did it. Lots of tracking shots, a la Stanley Kubrick, and lots of fast cuts and fast splices. You did not, and I don't know if I was necessarily a fan of the non-linear form that he did the movie, so he kind of jumps back through the past and the present.
I have to go check on my tile. What's the problem?
Why do I even bother having these low-budget reviews?
What's the problem?
God, I have bags under my eyes. I look awful. My late 30s have not been kind. She's not coming back. Okay, so let's keep talking about the movie. The MacLeod character was played by French actor Christopher Lambert that had been in this Tarzan movie and gotten a lot of critical acclaim. He spoke no English, and he worked 4 hours a day with a dialogue coach and 4 hours a day with a professional swords fighter doing all the sword fighting scenes. It's just I feel like it's a classic of the 80s. I've seen it many times before. I think this is probably the third time that I've watched it. It spawned 3 or 4 other movies, which I've only seen part 2, which was trash. I'm not even going to get into the other movies. They get progressively worse as the time goes by. And it had a TV series. I like time travel, and I like that this, to me, kind of seems... It's not a time travel movie per se, but like the long living life. So like, again, the Connor McLeod character was born in the 1500s, and he's lived all the way up until the 1980s, and there's all these people throughout the world that are kind of like immortal per se. They could only kill each other by beheading, and they're going to this final gathering where they all have to battle it out, and there's a evil ultimate villain who's super menacing, super depraved, thousands of years old, because of the McLeod character's only 500-ish years old, but the ultimate villain that he has to fight is several thousand years old. And it does not really give you the origin story. Part 2 goes down a completely different route of an origin story. But I really love this film. Would you say this is a guy film?
Yes.
Okay.
How could it not be a guy film?
IMDb...
That's the real question.
IMDb gave this movie, 7 out of 10, which is a higher rating than they even gave this movie, which had a 91% Rotten Tomatoes score. So this just kind of shows you that
horrible.
The rating systems are just out the window. Personal preference, am I right?
Yes.
Again, this movie failed at the box office. It was really long. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 71% score. There is continuity issues. There's some cheesy stuff, but
Give the kid a lollipop and he's still not happy.
4 out of 5. I want to hear your input on this movie because the people like it when you talk, apparently.
Well, you should let me give my input first before you launch into everything.
I like early DVDs. This is a 1997 DVD copy. Look at that. Sean Connery also worked with the vocal coach to try and have a Spanish accent, which was totally non-existent. 10 years ago, we took an amazing adventure with the making of Highlander and the birth of a legend. And the
premise is a good idea, but it doesn't really explain like why. Like, why are these people... Wait, just let me talk.
Okay.
Why are these people immortal? Why does he have some friends who are immortal, who are nice to him, and clearly he's been friends with them for hundreds of years? But then the one bad guy who's also immortal keeps saying there can only be one, which I get it. At the end, they have to kill each other or something.
Yeah.
But what was going to happen if that one bad guy didn't... Anyways, I don't want to give it away in case someone wants to watch it. But
you can give spoilers.
Well, no. I don't want to do that. But it's just... And then... It doesn't make sense, like, why he can't... It's never explained, like, why he can't have children, like, because he's immortal.
Well, that differed from the original story.
Have kids, and then, like, his guy that trains him to fight tells him... Yeah, Ramirez.
The Sean Connery character.
He, like, tells him, well, you shouldn't have, like, any love interests, because... You know, they're going to die before you or whatever. So, who cares? That could happen in a regular relationship, that the person could die before you. Like... You're just gonna live your whole life loveless and sexless because...
And this is 500 years of life.
Because someone could die before you. Like, okay, big deal, you know, who cares? And then, I don't know. There's just too much that's not explained, I think, about, like, why...
And that was almost
like,
a 2-hour
why he has
movie.
this gift of immortality. And then... The fact that it goes back and forth between time periods, like, it's fine, you get used to it, but it's just very confusing.
I didn't like that about Oppenheimer either. In the movie Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan kind of did this jump where they would, like, jump into their present and then jump into, like, the past of all those different things as they were unfolding. And he delineated the past and the present. We're talking about Christopher Nolan and Oppenheimer. He did the similar thing, but he delineated the past and the present. Because of the present, he filmed the scenes in black and white.
Oh.
And then in the past, it was in color. But there was not really... It just kind of like, he would, like, go into this dream sequence, and then it would kind of, like, focus in on something specific in the room, like a fish tank, and then all of a sudden they're back in the past again. So,
Yeah,
and
this
that's
kinda did
indicative of
something
this
similar.
director's style. He kind of likes to do these quick changes.
The other thing, and it's fine, okay, if you can accept the fact that it's not explained why they're immortal, which, okay, whatever. But still, just for me, you guys, maybe if you've seen a few of the reviews that we do, you know I like rom-coms. So I'm a girl. I know I'm basic,
battles.
whatever, but just there was not enough romance. There was
There
like
was two romance.
one
He had romances
scene,
with
and it
Heather,
was
and then
totally
the
a
other modern
guy,
girl.
totally a guy scene. Like, all right, these two people, you know, he bones down, as Corey likes to say that phrase. He bones down with this chick, and then it's like, and then she just tells him, you're afraid to live or whatever, basically. So good luck. And then it's just, there's not even any real relationship there at all.
Not that's expounded upon at that point, but
well, I guess maybe
part two
maybe,
kind of
maybe
unfolds
later
a lot
there
of
is
this,
actually.
but I don't like the direction they took the story in part two.
Didn't you say it was about aliens or something?
Yeah, they get there like aliens from another planet, and they've been on Earth so long they forgot their true origin, which it contradicts that.
I might like it better.
No, it was
I like Roswell.
It was not good.
Oh, it was not good.
Very
okay,
forgettable.
The thing is, if you like gore and violence, then you'll love this movie. Actually, it's not really that gory, but it's just okay. So these immortal people, they can only like kill. You can only die when you're in this immortal state or whatever if you're beheaded. So there's lots of beheadings, which is just
not for you.
I don't like it.
It wasn't necessarily
who likes
graphic.
beheadings, you know, but I mean, I guess guys enjoy violence, which why do they enjoy violence? Is it the testosterone? Is that why?
Let's just give you
It is, isn't it?
I'm 4 out of 5. I think it's a classic. What do you think? What's your numerical
I mean,
rating
it was
there?
entertaining enough that I wanted to see what was going to happen, so I can't really give it like that negative of a score.
Would you say 3 out of 5?
Yeah, I'd have to say 3 or maybe 3.5 out of 5.
That's
3.7. No, I'm just kidding. 3.795 out of 5.
I could respect that, and I appreciate you suffering through it with me.
It was interesting. The fact that they flash back and forth between like the present time and the past, I guess it does give it more depth and more interest versus just like, you know, starting at the beginning and going forward. And you really did hate the villain. He was.
He was a great villain.
Absolutely horrible. So, I mean, if you want to have someone to hate and you want to get really excited about watching beheadings and lots of sword fighting. If you love sword fighting, you'll love this.
If you love Lord of the Rings, you'll love this movie.
And did you mention the fact that the guy had kind of a weird accent because he didn't know any English when he made it?
The main guy that played McLeod was...
And they even ask him in the movie, like, where's your accent from? Like, why do you have a weird accent?
Again, he's supposed to be from the Scottish Highlands, and sometimes it's there. Just like I read in like I mentioned earlier, Sean Connery's character met with a vocal dialogue guy to give himself a Spanish accent. Didn't even sound like anybody other than Sean Connery.
Oh, that was the other thing that didn't really make sense. It's like, okay, they're supposed to be immortal, but Sean Connery has aged, obviously, more than the main guy.
And
so
a lot of them kind of like...
Why did he age at all? There's no explanation.
Some of the immortals looked older. Like the first guy that he battles in that parking lot looked older. But then a lot of them just kind of looked like they were guys in their 30s.
Yeah, and then he has like a best friend who's a African-American gentleman. I'm sorry, I forgot his name.
Yeah.
And
that guy didn't look old.
He looked young. He looked like he was in his 20s.
So there was no
30s,
continuity of their immortality age.
Yeah, and then they were friends. So it's like, wait, if there can only be one, why are some of them like nice to each other and they're best friends, and then there's just one of them that wanted to kill everybody? I think that the premise is that
if it came down to the wire, whoever was left would have to battle each other.
But it never explains why. Which, I mean, movies don't explain things sometimes, so maybe that's okay. But I feel like there needs to be some...
Your movie would have been 3 hours long.
A little.
We were already pushing it at 116 minutes, folks.
Well, there's lots of time periods that you have to get through with this because it started in like the 1500s or something.
I mean, I would say the bulk of the movie is like in the 1500s and the 1980s with an amazing Queen soundtrack that I love.
And the Queen...
No?
I don't know. The Queen soundtrack with the olden times
You needed a more period soundtrack?
Yeah, no. Or did they even play any Queen songs when it was like the 1500s? Did they play Queen songs?
I can't remember.
Maybe they just played the Queen songs in the 80s parts. So I guess that makes sense, but I don't know. What can I say? I need to watch a rom-com after this movie.
We're going to wrap it up here. We're running long.
Now I have to watch Ever After or something so I can feel better. A lot less violence.
We'll see you then, folks. Thanks for watching.
All right, bye.